It is so important to me to ensure that this show only promotes positivity and love. Take this episode and use it to encourage yourself to listen to that inner voice, your intuition. Remember, intuition, by definition, is a thought before your brain overcomplicates things. It's literally our roadmap to happiness and success. All we have to do is learn to follow it. Together, we can reach our full potential and redefine life on our terms. Here's another show that's going to help you get even closer. Welcome to Inspired by Jimmy L. I am brave, I am proof, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Nicole Zeien Cox. She's a mentor, keynote speaker, and the author of Foster to Fosters, which, by the way, is an Amazon bestseller. Don't play with Nicole. She has even joined the board of the Guardian Scholars Foundation, which empowers and sponsors kids from the foster system to continue their education. Nicole is one of the most passionate people that I have ever met. Honestly, during this conversation and interview, seeing her passion lit a spark under my own. I will forever remember a colleague of mine's coming to my office just to kind of get away, to vent about a conversation that she'd had with her boss. Which, I mean, come on now. We all have been there. When someone has upset you or ticked you off and you just have to get some things off your chest, before you explode, you know what I'm talking about. Well, you see, in this particular case, he'd made her feel as though she was less than worthy to effectively lead her team. Although it started out as a venting session, her anger turned into shame. And the tears, they began to just slowly appear. I could only hug and inspire her to just stand up for what she believed in. I mean, now I couldn't force my confidence onto her, but that was something she had to do on her own. But I realized in that moment, and I believe it was the same way with Nicole, but no one, and I mean no one, has the right to make anyone feel less than human. Whether you are inspired to foster, inspired to donate, inspired to follow your own passion, this is one interview that will empower you to act. Let this encourage you to follow your intuition and wherever it may lead you, but please follow it. Reach out to Nicole on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or even on YouTube at Nicole Zeien Cox. And that's Nicole, Nicole, Zeien, Zeien Cox.
All right, everyone. I'm your host, Jimmy Ward Mize, and welcome to another episode of Inspired by Jimmy L. Today's guest is going to probably tug at your heart a little bit. At least I believe so. I'm just going to say she is. She's not only a mentor to the youth, but she's also the author of Foster to Fosters. Please help me welcome to today's show, Miss Nicole Zeien Cox. Welcome,
Hi,
Nicole.
everyone. Thank you.
Please tell me I got your name right. Please tell me I got it right.
You were so close.
Okay, I was like, please tell me, correct me.
It's Zeien Cox. So there
Zeien.
Zeien Cox, yeah.
So is that a maiden name and married name?
Actually, so that ties into my story and my advocacy work. So that's actually because I was adopted and, my biological name. So my adopted name was Zeien, and then my biological name was Cox. So we had an open adoption, and they kept both the last names. So
that's so cool.
Thank you.
That is so cool. Okay, so what were you adopted from birth?
No, I wasn't. So a big part of my story and in my book, I kind of walk you through exactly what happened, So I was actually in foster care initially at 2 and then adopted at 5. So, Yeah, and actually back into foster care as a teen, so we can get into that as well.
Are you okay? Okay. 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 Oh my gosh.
I know,
For
yeah.
starters, I had no idea.
Yep.
This is really gonna probably tug probably more so of my heart than anyone. My husband and I have definitely been looking, and we've been at least
Oh,
exploring different options.
that's
So,
awesome.
okay. So, okay, the book. What was the main reason behind the book? Let me start there. Let me ask that.
Yeah, the main reason was my sister Jessica. So she's like my sidekick, my other half. We were actually fortunate enough to be adopted together. So she was the reason.
Okay, that was gonna be my question. So that's your biological sister. Gotcha.
Yeah, my biological sister. And she became pregnant. So I just knew I wanted to do something more. And there had to be something more for us. So that's why I wrote the book.
Okay, what do you mean? Now I would elaborate on that. What do you mean? There has to be
Elaborate?
more. Yes.
So where we came from, we were just little girls when we were in foster care, and both of our parents were addicts, and we didn't come from, a lot at all. And I just sat there and I'm like, these little, so at the time we only knew it was one, come to find out it was twin girls. So I just sat there and I'm like, no matter what, I want them from the start to have unconditional love, a great life. And I knew I didn't want to work a 9 to 5. I wanted to be there for them and there for her through that whole journey because, I was going to school full time, working full time, and I barely had time to eat, sleep, and I'm like, if I do something else, if I do something different, I can create a life and I can have more freedom for us and them and just have more.
Okay, so I gotta ask this, and I know we were
Yeah.
talking about your sister and that she was pretty much the inspiration behind the movie. I'm not the movie, Lord have mercy. I'm speaking that into your life. How about that? But but she's the inspiration behind the book and the twins that she was bringing into the world. But let me ask you this. Let me backtrack just a little bit. As a 2-year-old, do you have any, I guess, odd memories or memories in general going into the foster system at that age?
I think a lot of it has just been, stories that we were told, so I feel like I remember it. But
Okay, okay.
but the earliest memory I have is really when we'd go back and forth to our birth mom's house for a visit. And I just remember my sister and I eating sherbet ice cream and playing with little Barbie dolls. And like we had, and we had like this little bathtub, those Cool Whip containers. That was like their
Yes.
swimming.
Oh, yeah.
That was their swimming pool, and we had to probably be like 2. I know, we were like 2 and 3 then at that time. Yeah.
So, and you knew that there was a transition that was going on in between your biological parents and being put up for adoption?
Yeah, so a lot of cases kids are taken away from their mom and dad, but in our case our mom gave us up voluntarily, so she
Okay.
still had rights during this time frame. And
Gotcha.
we were bouncing around in a couple foster homes, but after she failed some drug tests and they found she wasn't fit to be a parent, they did terminate her rights. But there was like a 2-year span where we would go back for visits and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So as kids, it was so confusing. We didn't understand. We knew that was our mom, especially me being older.
Yeah.
So it was tough, but yeah, yep. Eventually, then we got adopted, and yeah.
So how often does something like that happens where the adoptive parents actually receive both kids or both siblings from the same household? Like how often does something like that happen?
Actually, not very often, and
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I speak on that, and it's in my book because it was a really pivotal moment actually for my adopted mom and making that decision. A social worker came to our house, and, I was probably 4 and Jessica was 3. And she sat there and took pictures of both of us separately. And my mom was like, why aren't you, taking a picture of the girls together? And she goes, oh, well, there's a good chance they won't be placed together, so we have to do them separately. And then that's when my mom and dad, like that second, they're like, they can't be split up. Those little girls, they're staying with us. So then they adopted us together.
So I was like them stating that just kind of swayed your adopted parents into
Yeah.
the direction of keeping both of you guys. Not saying that they were obligated to do so, correct?
Not at all, yeah. And they got into foster care because they lost their firstborn son, and they had three other siblings after, and they still felt like something was missing. So they wanted to foster, and they never really considered adoption. They didn't think, but I guess Jessica and I came and they said we just fit the family, and they knew in their heart that that was right. So they adopted us.
So good. That is so good. Like, it really, especially, and again, because I've heard like so many horror stories, and some you have to take with a grain of salt, and some has some type of validity to it. And so to hear that, and to get obviously a good home, it's freaking awesome. And so you said you all were in the system at that young age of 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then you found a home. You then got back into the system later on.
Yes. Yeah.
How were you showing out? What I have a strange feeling. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Were you showing out?
Yeah, I was like, well, the problem child, and it really stemmed back to so much anger and so many, undealt with emotions at being so young and all that happening. Yeah. And I just, it's not like we were in counseling or, it just, especially way back then, in 95 when I was born and around that time frame, it wasn't as like, hey, what problems are these kids going to have, even being born like with drugs in their system and different things like that. They didn't know what they know now, and it was just kind of swept under the rug. And our family, I was born, or not born, we were adopted into a very small town, so it wasn't like mental health was a huge focus or anything like that. So I think just being so young and just bottling all that up, I just kind of had a freak out in my teen years, and it was rough, so I ran away from home. I was just doing what I just being headstrong and naughty. And yeah, I went to like a respite home for like 7 days. I went to a detention center. Yeah, it was crazy. And then eventually I went into foster care for a placement for a couple months again. And thankfully that family was awesome. They were really amazing.
Now, because that's another rarity, at least so I'm told, taking on older kids. I mean, am I correct in saying that as well?
You are actually. The family that decided to take me when I was 15, they were very hesitant, because they had teens in the past, and then they heard the same thing hearsay that, usually when they're older, it's so hard for, to shape them or mold them because they are who they are, and they've had so much trauma happen, and usually they're problem kids, and they had little girls at the time, and they didn't want to bring some crazy teenage girl into the house, but I wasn't. I'm the same person I am now. It's just I had so much anger towards my parents for things that they couldn't even control. It was almost like I always felt like they took me from my mom, which obviously is not the case, and I know that, and I'm so grateful, but being so little, that just distilled in me, and it was almost like she and they were the enemy kind of thing. And I was so good in school, I was good with other people. It just, when it came down to that, I really struggled with acceptance and belonging and all those things. But yeah, so they almost didn't. They said no, but thankfully they did, because and I still talk with them once in a while now and check in, so they're awesome.
Your original adopted parents or the latest one?
Oh, no, my family, we're very close, but my second, when I was 15, then those guys.
So let me ask you this. So coming from, I'm going to say professional, coming from the profession itself, as well as being adopted or originally adopted, like at that age is what I'm talking about, 15, 16, teenage years, like what can someone do to kind of ease that pain? Or, because if you are hesitant to adopt a kid that is in their teenage years that may potentially have that kind of trauma that's kind of coming along with them, like as a parent looking to potentially adopt, what can you do to prepare for that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is, number one, accept who they are and what they come with. Don't try to change them. Don't try and mold them into something they're not, and just provide them with space. Space is a huge thing. You don't want to be too smothering or too much, and just kind of feel out their personality, start to be their friend, and of course have boundaries and rules and all those things. But listening is huge, because a lot of times, like me, when I was acting out and all those things, I really wanted attention. I wanted love. I wanted to feel these things, and I didn't feel like I was getting that. So then I'd act out and I was bad. But a lot of times these kids, they just want to be loved and they want to be heard. They need to feel empowered, like they have a voice, and, that there's somebody, not just shoved around and everyone else is making the decisions for them. I think that's really huge, just giving them that power to say, okay, and even making things their idea. Even if you want something, you can word it so it's their idea, and then they're happy.
I got you. A little child psychology. I got that. Like, I kind of get that. I really do get that. So okay. Now, because I don't know, and a lot of things that I supposedly know is only what I've heard. So there are all these assumptions. So, like, is there? Because there is, because you see the movies and you see the shows, and you get in your mind, the first thing that pops in my mind is like this crazy, foolish, rat-infested type of detention center, that's housing kids. Please tell me it's not like that from where you came from.
Not where I came from, no. And no.
Thank you. Oh my God. So
it felt like kind of like a kid jail, honestly. Like we'd have lockdowns at certain times. We'd have to go in our room. They'd do bed checks, and then at night, you were locked in your room. You couldn't come out. You had to knock if you wanted to get out, and things like that. And you had to do your chores. And there was like housing units. It really did kind of feel like a little kid jail, but yeah, no, it wasn't like that.
Oh my gosh! But even then, that's still to the extreme.
Yeah. And I think it's because, a kid like me that was running away from home and not listening, partying, I don't know if that was necessarily the most appropriate thing. It was more like a scare tactic. Hey, if you don't behave, you're going to end up here. But there's a lot of kids in there, the shelter unit, they called it. And it was so sad. It was actually kids that didn't have anywhere else to go. They were pretty much homeless or couldn't get adopted or fostered. But then there was kids in there that had really hurt other kids or murdered someone or raped them or, all these bad things. I'm like, these are two completely different worlds.
Completely different. Yes.
Even though they had different housing units, like the food area was the same, the rec area, all those things. And I don't know. Yeah.
That is kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
That is good. Now, okay. So fostering and adopting, aren't they different?
Yeah, so fostering or, in foster care. So that's really, almost think you're kind of babysitting, not babysitting, but taking in a kid for a temporary time, and then adopting is, hey, you're my kid, you're one of us, you're one of the family. So you're really taking ownership of that kid's life and, you belong to us now. But fostering, in foster care, a lot of times kids are just bounced around and that's their temporary home.
Okay, so and you, I hope you don't hate me for this. So please try not to. One thing that has always, and again, it's something my husband and I, we've been talking about, and it's so hurtful for me. If I were, or we were, excuse me, to foster a kid, like I don't want to give the kid back. Yeah. And so, like on one hand, I want to help because I know the need is there.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like there's an emotional bond that's going to be there.
Oh yeah.
So how can you deal with that? Yeah. Knowing that you're going to have to eventually give this child back. Or
right. And I haven't, and I do plan when I'm ready, and I have a significant other that's on the same page. I do want to foster and adopt eventually, but from just even the connections I've made and the little community that I'm in, I really think you need to think of it as you're a part of their stepping stone. You're a part of their life, their mentor. You're kind of setting them up for the next step and the next path. And honestly, a lot of placements, sometimes it's years, sometimes it's months, sometimes it's days. It's case by case and you don't know. So, do your best to love them and set them up for their next journey,
Okay. Like I've never heard it put that way.
Yeah.
Consider yourself a stepping stone or a part of their journey.
Yeah.
I never really thought of that. I really haven't. Like I like that.
Good. Yeah. And it is so needed, and who knows, maybe the next family they go to, that's the right home. That's their forever home. You just never know. Or maybe, the parents just need a little bit of time to get things straightened out, and you can be the one that, loves them and holds them and everything until they're ready, and that mentor for them.
That's actually what struck the conversation initially. We know someone that's in our lives that has kind of gone through that, and
Yeah.
the parents have kind of gotten themselves together, I think, or on the path of getting themselves together, something of the sort. But the child in the situation ended up going back. And
Yeah.
so and she's kind of dealing with it, and it's really hard. It's tough. It's definitely tough again because there's a major emotional bond that was there. And so over all the months, and I want to say maybe a year, maybe if not a year or two, maybe. But young kid, a very young kid, and very impressionable.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to see her do that.
Yeah.
But to try to put myself in those shoes, it's really hard. But again, I've never heard it put like that.
Well, maybe you plan to her. Yeah, you should.
I like that.
Thank you.
So, foster to fosters.
Yes.
What was your biggest challenge writing that book?
Oh my gosh.
or your biggest lesson?
Biggest lesson, biggest challenge. Probably talking to my birth dad for the first time. So, yeah, the second chapter is actually okay. So think about this. You only kind of see pictures of your birth dad. You have one baby picture with him. You don't remember him. He's in prison. You kind of conversate throughout the years. Kind of don't. The first ever time you hear his voice, that's exactly what's transcribed in the second chapter. Our entire phone conversation I typed as he talked. So
oh my gosh.
So the readers, they get to walk through like how I felt and what I asked him, and then I reflected back after like exactly what my emotions were, the nightmare I had, like everything. It's really intense, but that was probably the hardest. And honestly, after I wrote that book for a couple months, it took me a couple months to even kind of recoup from that, and it was a little traumatic even as an adult, just to see how I felt and wrap my head around what I learned and just everything. It was intense.
Was it a positive resulting conversation?
I think it was, because I longed for that for so long, to hear his voice and to get to know a piece of him and ask the questions I wanted. So yeah, and I just learned so much more, and I was able to piece my story together more. So yeah, I would say in the end it was, it definitely.
And are you still in contact with him now?
Still. So
Don't answer that.
I love being, and that's part of the journey. I want people to like walk through it with me, but that is part of it. Later this year, I want to meet up with him and everything, and have it recorded and all that stuff. So people get to go on that journey with me, but I still haven't really reached back out after that initial. We talked a little bit after, but I was just kind of at a loss. I had to figure out how I felt and take some time, but I plan to when I'm ready, and I'm getting there.
No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure. But how long ago was that conversation?
Just shy of a year ago now. So not too, and of course life gets in the way and then everything, but yeah, it was a lot, just going so long and not knowing anything, and then hearing all this, and I'm like, what in the world? But yeah, it was important because that's my roots, that's where I come from, and I some of the things I could already tell him, like, I get that from you, my creative side, the writing, that's all from him,
Now that there alone should have made for a very interesting conversation.
It definitely was. Even when he was in prison, he used to like draw my sister and I different like cartoons for our birthdays and like write us poems. And he actually wrote a poem that I put in my book as well. So he's very linguistic.
Okay. And do you still keep in contact with your mom, your birth mom?
I saw her a couple months ago. Prior to that, it was like a couple years. But yeah, Her more than my dad. She's closer to me. She lives like an hour away.
Okay, that was definitely on my list. Like, are you still in the small town? Is going to be my very next question. So you're not.
Yeah, it's close. Like
you're
40.
Gotcha. So, question then. So, do you suggest? Let me ask you this: do you suggest that a child that young that's being adopted or even up for foster care? Do you suggest the back and forth between the birth parents? Okay.
No, absolutely not. I mean, yeah, I think every scenario is different, and I think a lot needs to go into account. If the biological parents are healthy and appropriate, and how the kid's responding. But in our situation, I think that should have been a no from the get-go. My mom was still a very active addict, and just the way my sister and I would behave, we'd come back and throw tantrums, like temper tantrums for days. And obviously, that's probably really affecting us as kids, and there's a reason we're acting that way. But I think my adoptive parents thought that, they didn't want to keep us from our birth mom. But, now knowing what I know, I'm like, that triggered just so much heartache. And, just my mom not showing up for visits because she was, strung out or this and that, every time with just little girls so excited to see their mom and she doesn't show up and, things like that. It's just, I think we would have been best off if it was a closed adoption, and when we were ready to fully comprehend and understand
What happened?
who we were dealing with, kind of thing, and what was going on, then we could make the choice ourselves to meet them or not. But for me, I just was always so torn that, I don't belong here. I belong with my mom. My mom's there. And I think that's where a lot of my defiance came and all that, So personally, no, but I think it is circumstantial.
Okay. I know that you are extremely, Say that again?
Kind of a loaded answer and question, but
no, I actually love that answer. And initially I was not going to say why, but because I was going to move on a little bit, but I really do love that answer. Again, it's a conversation that Winston and I, or my husband and I, have had, and we kind of feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
And so, and I guess still depending upon the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely want, whatever we decide to do, whether it is adoption, surrogacy, we want to be completely upfront with our child to let them know where they came from and what's going on and what has happened. But we agree with you. Not until they're able to process it that you need to start to, try to even remotely mend that relationship with the birth parents. And so, because for me, I feel that it confuses the kid too.
Yeah.
Like it's confusion at its finest.
Like, who's my mom and why can't I go home with her? And then
Exactly.
Yeah, and we started to get older, and then my mom actually had 3 more boys after my sister and I.
Are you serious?
Seriously. So then we were like, well, why do our brothers get to go with our mom and we don't? And it was just heartache. And then we didn't get to see them. And yeah, I just wish it would have been different, but it wasn't. And that's our story. But that's why I love to share mine and my experiences, especially for people like you and your husband, just hearing maybe one person like, okay, yeah, maybe we can make this change when we have kids. And, because not everyone has that firsthand experience and went through it kind of thing.
Because honestly, I don't know of anyone that has been through either the foster system or even adoption. We know several people that may have to be with their grandparents or maybe an aunt or an uncle, but an actual, completely a stranger, someone that's not even a family member, like, I can't remember. I can't think of anyone. So, but it definitely opens my eyes. Like, I really do mean that. I really do mean that.
And off the show, we can always, I'm like, seriously, 100%. If you guys are doing that, I'm like your cheerleader.
This was, okay, my husband only wanted 1 kid, okay? Just gonna throw that out there, okay? Like he's not listening. But he only wanted 1. I wanted 3.
I want 3.
I really want, I wanted 3. Oh my gosh, I just can't wait. But I wanted like 2 biological, 1 from him, 1 for me. And then I wanted to adopt or, foster or whatever for the 3rd kid. And so I'm like, his thing was, I'm going to compromise with 2.
You're like,
So I'm like, we were just, And so I just, again, all of it is in the air. All of it is, it's not cheap, mind you. Any direction that we go in, it's not the cheapest. But, you know, all of it is in the air. All of it is on the table. And we're really kind of just educating ourselves. So this conversation really comes at a perfect time. It comes at a perfect time. So, yeah, it comes at a perfect time. Okay, so I know, because I'm trying not to cry if you pick up on that. But I know, I know that you're excited about the book. I know that you're proud of your book. What are some of the things that you, Nicole, are currently doing?
Currently, really working on my speaking because I found that's the best way to impact people, especially several people at a time. And I have a voice, and I love to talk to people. I love people, and I want to be on more stages, sharing my message, you know, just being around people. So that's the biggest thing. Foster care wise, I did join a nonprofit. I sit on a board of directors now. So that's exciting. We're helping former foster youth get through school. So we help them with the educational expenses, like mentorship, stuff like that. So that was huge and exciting for me. And yeah, just be able to help more of those kids. So
So is that a local thing?
Yeah, Des Moines. So about 2 hours from me.
Oh
So
my
not
God.
bad. Yeah, and we're having an event in October to raise some money because, of course, you know, it's nonprofit. It's expensive to put the kids through school. And so I'll be speaking at that. And yeah, just kind of working on the marketing and getting the word out there for that. So.
Well, I mean, okay, and I'm not just saying this because of the show, and we can even talk about it afterwards. But seriously, like, whatever I can do to help out with that, I'm being completely serious and transparent on that. A, I love the youth, and B, like, at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that are basically running this country.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, I really do believe in supporting them and getting them to a place where, at the very least, believing in themselves and having the confidence to kind of just be who they naturally are so that they can find their lane, you know. So I definitely believe that. So anyway, my point is still the same. Whatever help you need on that, I don't care. Just let me know. Like I'm open. Just let me know. So seriously, again, off camera on that, but we can definitely seriously like talk about that in whatever needs to happen.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I know that's like I don't know if you're gonna put this in or not, but that's something I've been brainstorming too. There's so many kids that need help when they're transitioning out of foster care, especially when they don't get adopted or have families. You know, they're 18 and they're pretty much just thrown out. Like, okay, figure out life for yourself. Like, and they have no like skills, you know, depending on what homes they were in. Like a lot of them don't have any life skills and cooking and financial and all those things. So I don't know. I've been racking my brain on something I can start and something I don't know what it is yet. It'll be something, but yeah.
Okay, like we need to get together. I know Levi put us on that a long time ago that we were all supposed to get together. Like we really do.
I know.
Like we really do. I would. Oh my gosh! Like I don't. Because I mean, I'm not. Well, I won't even say that because I've never said that publicly. But they need some type of education in, you know what I mean, in the real world. So so like desperately. So okay. I would love to help out with that.
Cool.
In any way that I can. I would love. So yeah, I would love to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Deal. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. I do have one question that I actually ask all of my guests.
Okay.
And I know that it's different for everyone. So I want to hear your thoughts, your mind. What does success and happiness look like for you?
Okay. Success and happiness to me looks like living life on my terms. You know, of course, being financially stable to support myself and everyone around me and give back to, you know, those that can't help themselves. And of course, that goes into foster care. So, you know, I do want to be successful soon. I don't have to worry, you know, if I'm harming myself or, you know, putting myself in a bind. I just want an abundance and I can just spread around the joy. So that's what that looks like to me. And traveling.
Have you started traveling?
A little bit, yeah. Just states mostly, but.
What's your favorite place thus far?
Florida.
Where? Orlando?
So I haven't been there yet, but my favorite place right now is Destin, Florida, because it's beautiful.
My neighbor, well, my former neighbor, because she doesn't live next to it anymore. But oh my gosh, she goes every year. Like she's this very, very old lady. I mean, old. But she and all of her sisters and her friends, like they go get a house every year in Destin. Like we've been to several places down there, Port Canaveral and around Orlando and in Orlando. But like I've never been to Destin.
Yeah.
I just heard that it has some of the best beaches ever.
Yeah.
So
So when I'm like, I do plan to move there one day. When I do, it's going to be in Destin.
oh, you want to move, not just vacation.
No, I want
Oh,
that.
all right, honey.
That's my dream list or bucket list, you know.
I got you. But I would love. I know I would love to be on the beach. I want to be in Cali. I want to be in California so bad. Oh my goodness, I really do want to go, but my husband's not going. Like he's not going at all.
No.
No. Like he's from Illinois, and I'm from Tennessee, and so we end up being stuck here in Tennessee. But he likes the cold. I like the beach. I like to be a little bit more warm. Like I don't do snow. We've never seen his parents in the snow.
My gosh, funny.
We don't do that. So, but, oh my gosh. Okay, so Nicole, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, social media, I'm really active on there. All my channels are @ Nicole Zeien Cox. I'm sure we'll put it in the link or something. Website, NicoleZeien-Cox.com. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you just message me, I'm really easy to get a hold of. So
You are. And I really do appreciate you for saying yes. Like I really, really, really do.
Yeah, thanks.
And even the knowledge. I mean, is there anything else that we're leaving out? Anything else you want to just make sure that you bring home during this conversation?
I don't know why, but the quote on my book just popped in the back of my head. It's be everything they said you couldn't be. So just for everyone, if someone ever put you down or, said you can't do something, you want to do it, just do it and prove them wrong. So
that is a great place.
I'll leave you with that.
I love it. I love it, Nicole. Well, that's a wrap.
Oh my goodness. I hope you took notes with me on that one because that was some serious knowledge. If you have not already, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our channel on iTunes or your favorite podcasting source. Also, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or you can even catch the live conversations right there on YouTube. See you again soon. Until next time, let's make positivity even louder.